One guy was an engineer. He was doing that for 10 years and he quit his job to be a full-time Airbnb host, and like he was buying houses and renovating them. And I was like, that's so cool. He was like, yeah, it's the best decision I've ever made. Yeah, so in 2014, a friend of mine came over to my apartment in Carytown and made a comment that my apartment looked like an Airbnb. And I said, what is that? And he explained it to me. It seemed like a pretty cool concept. So I decided to book some stays as a traveler. And I booked this little road trip. My sister, I called it the Sis Tour of the East Coast. And we stayed at a bunch of private room Airbnbs. And after meeting with those hosts and learning about their stories and their experiences, I was so inspired and really just motivated to give hosting a go on my own. So in 2015, I got up the courage to speak with a loan officer and a real estate agent and purchased my first home in Churchill.
Awesome.
And my very first listing was just a private room in that house. So I lived there. It was my primary residence.
What do you think drew you to Airbnb? Like, how did you get hooked so quick? What about it really like fired you up?
The hosts.
Just like the people themselves?
Yeah, like they were just so amazing and hospitable and kind. And like I said, we stayed in private rooms. I didn't have a lot of money at that time, but like they would make us breakfast in the morning. Our very first host ever, her name was Brenda. We stayed in a private room on her floating house. And she like felt like a long lost aunt. My sister and I were joking about that. We stayed up that night listening to her stories of travel and adventure. And she, popped open champagne when we arrived. And in the morning, she got like warm blankets out of the dryer for us to bring us up to watch the sunrise from the rooftop deck of the boat. And I was just like, oh my God, like, this is a thing.
Insane.
Like I had just stayed in hotels, nothing wrong with hotels, but I was so used to that experience. And so seeing that along with all of the other stays during that road trip, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And these are just like normal people. These aren't people that are running hotels. Like they just have a private room in their house that they're sharing to make ends meet. And they're just amazing human beings, and they just spoke so highly of the platform and the people that they were meeting through it. One guy was an engineer and had just quit his job. He was doing that for 10 years and he quit his job to be a full-time Airbnb host, and like he was buying houses in Savannah, Georgia and renovating them and then doing like private rooms in those houses. And I was like, that's so cool. He was like, yeah, it's the best decision I've ever made. Like I'm so happy now. And he was like, I have friends all over the world because of this. It's so fulfilling. And I'm an extrovert. Like I'm definitely a people person. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds right up my alley. Like I remember talking with my sister after that road trip and I was like, I think this is actually my calling. Like I need to do this.
That's cool. It's interesting how like a little comment like that spurred, basically like redirected a portion of the course of your life. I've had like similar things happen where it's just so strange, where people will either make a comment or a suggestion, and it's like you run with it and it changes the course of your life if you're listening to these opportunities. And it's almost like unlocking some weird, or not weird, but like some untapped, inaccessible experience that you wouldn't be able to get, because most of the time it's motels or hotels and that's where you stay, right? Or on a bus or whatever. But now you get to take part in other people's lives and where they live in their homes and like what neighborhoods they live in and stuff that may be away from hotels or motels or whatever. And it's kind of like this untapped experience that you get to go on. And I think you probably witnessed that when you were going up and down the East Coast.
Yeah, and that's like a whole other thing. It wasn't just their spaces that we stayed overnight. It was like they also told us the local restaurants to go to and hikes to do, and like it was a very local experience, that whole trip, like even when we left the Airbnbs. So that was really neat. I actually did a road trip around New Zealand a few years later for a full month around both islands. And that's what we did. We would book an Airbnb and we would meet the hosts and ask them what's one restaurant to go to and one local like fun thing to do today. And we just followed their lead, and it was like the most incredible trip.